What is the best tablet in the world? Is it Apple with their M1 iPad Pro, or is it Samsung with their brand new Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra? Well, today we will find out once and for all in this detailed comparison where we're gonna compare the displays, the speakers, the performance of the CPU and graphics, and more. Let's go ahead and get this unboxed. And just like before, we do not have a charger in the box. You just get the tablet, whereas Apple, even though they started this trend, they still give you one. Now, holding this in my hands, I gotta say, it feels very thin. The crazy thing is that even though this is the largest tab, it is also the thinnest, which feels kind of weird but nice in your hand. But it is really nice that they include an S Pen in the box, so you don't have to go and spend another $130 like you do with the Apple Pencil. We'll compare the performance of these in just a sec. Now, taking a look at the tablets themselves, even though the iPad Pro is large, this thing is a lot bigger. Look how tall this is when they're in a vertical orientation. It is massive. Let me stack this up right there side by side. You guys can see all that extra space. Now, if we go ahead and put the iPad on top of the Ultra, it is just slightly wider, meaning that even though this Samsung Tab S8 Ultra is 14.6 inches, in reality, it is mostly because of its aspect ratio being way wider. So it's actually narrower. Now that could be good for watching videos and movies, things like that. We'll see how good it does as far as the OLED display compared to mini LED. Now, as far as cameras, this camera bump is quite small. It's kind of a long shape like they've been using for a while, and it does not have the LiDAR sensor that Apple's does. It just includes 2 lenses and a flash, and we'll take some photos in a sec. And taking a look at the front, yes, the Samsung tablet now features a notch, and that's because they have 2 cameras there, which we will test out. But I just want to show you guys just how this screen looks compared to the iPad. It just makes the large iPad look small when it's right next to it. The tab does have an under-display fingerprint scanner. Works pretty well. Seems almost like it's faster than the S8 Plus, but maybe it's just, I don't know, working better. Now, I do prefer Face ID because it is automatic. You swipe up, you're logged in. Or if you have the Magic Keyboard, you just press the space bar and it'll clear it. And if you're opening up an app, it will automatically just log you in without having to use your fingerprint. Both of these tablets have quad speakers, and I'm excited to hear how good the speakers are in this ultra-sized tablet from Samsung. So let's go ahead and compare them. All right, guys, you heard that for yourselves. Go ahead and let me know down below what your thoughts are. To me, it's evident that the iPad Pro sounds better. It is louder and it has deeper bass. It's interesting to hear some tech reviewers say the speakers are so good in here, they beat out the iPad. We have a really nice $1,000 recording setup here, and you guys heard that. So definitely the iPad for the win there, but the Samsung still gets pretty loud. It sounds good, especially for being that thin. Now, as far as microphone quality, this is the video from the iPad Pro using the wider mode to record. And this is kind of the quality that you can expect, of course, so you can enable the center stage feature for conferences online. But one thing that I don't like about the iPad is that the camera is over here. So it's set up for a vertical orientation, but then when you are using a keyboard case, like a lot of people do when they are recording or conferencing, then your camera is off to the side. And so when you're looking at the person that you're talking to, it looks like you're avoiding them on camera. And this is the microphone and video quality of the Tab S8 Ultra. Now I gotta say, this 4K footage looks really crispy. The iPad only does 1080p because it has a single ultra-wide camera that just crops in, where this has dual camera, so you can switch from that close-up shot to a wide angle without having to use digital crop, which ruins your quality, and it allows for 4K recording. Now, you guys let me know, do you like this setup better? I do wish there was no notch there for that, like the iPad doesn't have a notch, but I think it is quite cool to have this ability. So go ahead and let me know which one looked better and which one sounded better down in the comment section. Now, as far as the cameras, here are photos using the front-facing selfie cameras. Go ahead and let me know if you can really tell if that digital crop on the iPad makes a big difference. And here's some comparison shots from the regular 1X camera as well as the ultra wide. Personally, to me, I'm not very impressed with those rear camera modules, but the selfie cameras do look quite good, especially that one that's more close up. But that is actually not a horrible thing because you don't really use those back cameras that often, or at least you probably shouldn't, because most smartphones look better than that. But the front cameras you do use more often. And now let's go ahead and get into the displays. Both of these are high resolution 120 Hz displays, but the Samsung only allows you to either choose 120 Hz or if you want standard 60 Hz to get better battery life, whereas Apple allows you to use ProMotion, which is constantly variable, keeps everything smooth and saves battery at the same time. Now, Samsung is using an AMOLED display compared to Apple using mini LED, and that can make a pretty significant difference. First off, as far as maximum brightness, let's go ahead and crank that all the way up. I'll go ahead and adjust that top camera so it doesn't blow out. The brightness looks really close just sitting here, maxing these out. But where the iPad really comes in is when you're watching HDR content, because it can reach up to 1,600 nits. That really makes HDR video look amazing because you can have super bright highlights that really pop in video. The Samsung looks pretty good, and the fact that it's OLED allows the pixels to completely shut off to give you perfect blacks, and that definitely helps in darker environments. But unfortunately, the glass that Samsung is using is very reflective, and that gives the iPad actually deeper blacks because it has way better anti-reflectivity coatings. But the issue with the iPad is that sometimes you could see blooming, especially if you're in lower light and especially in completely black rooms with the display brightness maxed out. And when you have menu items that are white on dark, you can see that. Now, some of you guys asked for SDR video because not everybody watches HDR, and looking at them, they are a lot more similar. Now, the iPad is still a little bit brighter because the display in general can hit 600 nits compared to Samsung that advertises 400. And looking at the blacks right here, the blacks look a lot deeper and darker on the iPad, once again, because of reflectivity. Now, I do have to say that it does seem like the Ultra has a nicer display than just the Tab S8 Plus. The specs look very similar, but it does look brighter, at least more competitive to the iPad. And I also really like the wider aspect ratio. You guys see there's the black bars here are very minimal. We get a larger image compared to the iPad, but overall, including the speaker quality and their high brightness, I would say like that the iPad does have a nicer display. Now, for those of you guys who take notes and draw, how do the pens compare? Well, I will say that I do think the Apple Pencil is nicer. It is heavier, it feels a lot more quality, but you gotta buy it for 130 bucks compared to getting this for free in the box, which is amazing. The performance of the Apple Pencil has always been really, really good since we got ProMotion. You can't really notice any lag or delays. And in our previous video, we showed off some slow motion footage, how the S Pen really lagged. Now, some of you guys commented and said that we need to go into the Notes app manually to actually get the full performance of this S Pen that has been updated to have even less latency than the Apple Pencil. So here you go. I went in here, super smooth, no delay whatsoever. So sensitivity is good. I really have no complaints. Samsung did an excellent job when they included this in the box. I guess my only complaint is that this performance is not system-wide like it is with the iPad. And now let's get into performance. The first thing that I want to test is the speed of the storage with these devices. Both are 250 gigabyte models or so. So let's go ahead and start our test. The iPad's already done with 2,782 read and 2,245 write. Incredible performance, and that is needed because this iPad has a Thunderbolt port. So if you're gonna be transferring files, you want the performance. So Apple did spend the money to get really fast storage. And here you go, for the Samsung, we have 1,300 read and 639 write. That's over 2 times faster as far as read and 3.5 times faster in terms of write. So you're definitely getting your money's worth with the iPad compared to the Samsung, which is a lot slower. And then of course, you just have that USB Type-C port, which means that you can't hook up to a hub or an adapter that gives you a lot more ports. You'll have much slower transfer speeds and things like that. Now, what about the processor performance? We have the latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor compared to the legendary M1. And here in Geekbench 5, well, we have a significant difference. The iPad's single core performance is double what the latest Snapdragon offers in this tablet, and the multi-core performance is about 2.2 times. So that is a huge difference in performance. I feel like Qualcomm really needs a processor that's designed for the desktop that has more power. And yes, this is a thin device, but the iPad is pretty much the same thickness, maybe ever so slightly thicker, and it's getting this performance. Now, I want to run a few tests that we didn't last time with the Tab S8 Plus. So I have Geekbench's machine learning benchmark here. It's gonna test out what these can do as far as machine learning. And you guys know a lot of that is now being used for image processing, audio, there's a bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and run this benchmark. All right, and we have our results, and it's a pretty big difference. We have 1,017 here and 457 for the Tab S8 Ultra. Now, as far as graphics, last time we ran 3D Marks Wildlife. This time I'm gonna use GFXBench, and we're gonna run the very popular Aztec Ruins, the off-screen test. That way, there's no difference in resolution that could affect it. And bam, we have our results, and the M1 iPad scored 82.2 frames per second compared to 38. Now, of course, this is one test, and there are differences in the real world. We have thermal differences. So Vadim is gonna be doing a gaming test where he actually has it connected to another computer that is monitoring the frame rates, and it will be able to show you guys that real time. So if you guys wanna see that, make sure you guys are subscribed. So we definitely know that the iPad is the more powerful tablet by far, with the M1 processor, with the Thunderbolt port, with that fast storage. So what does the Samsung do well, or what are the standout features? Well, we have an SD card slot where you can put in your own storage. Of course, it's not gonna be even as fast as internal storage here, but that can save you a lot of money instead of having to buy it built in and charging a lot like Apple does with their iPad. Now, along with that, you have DeX. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the keyboard for this to set it up like I did last time, but here's some footage from the Tab S8 Plus, and DeX gives you so much flexibility to be able to use it as a desktop operating system. You can connect it to a display. There are no limitations with Android and with DeX, whereas with the iPad, like I talked about in my full review, Apple is really locking down iPadOS. There are so many little things that you can't do and that don't work. For example, external monitor support that you could just connect. Your stuff is cut off, and it doesn't make sense because on the iPad you can change your split view and everything adjusts properly. So Apple just does not want this to be a laptop replacement, where with the Tab, it pretty much is, even though it doesn't have the performance. Now, unfortunately, because this is a new size, those keyboards were sold out quickly, and that was a bummer considering that Samsung is charging $350 for that keyboard case, which is insane. I complained about it with Apple's Magic Keyboard case, but at least with this, even though I still think it's overpriced, you have this nice hinge, it floats, and the trackpad is excellent. It's not a diving board design. And then you get the extra port to be able to charge up while you're using your Thunderbolt port. And Samsung's keyboard is not as nice, but they're selling it also for $350, and people are buying it. But with all of that said, which one of these tablets is the best tablet in the world? And honestly, once we've seen the performance, we saw how the screen compares, I think that even Android fanboys have to admit that the iPad with the M1 is the king of all tablets. Not only do you have that 1600 nits display, you also have the better speakers. We have the cameras that are better on the back with LiDAR. You also have incredible performance, the storage. It is a nice machine. It's just a shame that Apple limits iPadOS so much. It has so much potential, but they still want you to buy a MacBook. But you guys let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Check out one of those great videos right over there. This has been Max, and I'll see you in the next video.